and welcome to our webinar today, where we are exploring sa.global and Microsoft's practice management solution for law firms. We have a packed agenda for you today. We are joined by 4 panelists. We're joined first of all by Paul Foster, who is Head of Product at sa.global. Paul oversees the development of sa.global's IP products built on the Microsoft Dynamics 365 platform. Paul joined sa.global in June 2019 from Nuvius, where he was Group Finance Project Manager. He's also a qualified accountant and holds an MBA from the University of Wales. Hi, Paul.
Hello, hi, welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us. We have Nigel Lang, Chief Information Officer at Field Fisher. Nigel has worked in the legal sector, I was going to say for many, many years, Nigel, but I'm just...
Quite a few, more than I think I will comment, Caroline, thank you.
Many years, I'm going to keep to many years, starting at Simmons, working in senior IT roles at Herbert Smith Freehills, Clyde & Co, and Hogan Lovells, where he was Chief Technology Officer. He worked for a fairly brief time in a consultancy before working at Hogan Lovells as Global Head of Technology Services, and started as CIO of Field Fisher in 2022, responsible for IT and cybersecurity. Nice to see you, Nigel.
Yep. Hi, Caroline. Hi, everybody.
Paul McPherson. So I'm going to call him Paul F and Paul M for the purpose of the webinar. Paul is Head of Enterprise, Commercial and Public Sector at Microsoft. Of his 25 years of sales and sales management experience, 20 of them have been in business transformation, IT, enterprise software, IT consultancy, etc. He's worked for Microsoft for over 6 years, and in the decade before that has worked in senior sales roles at Oracle and Experian, with another brief period of working at Microsoft. Paul.
Absolutely, two tours of duty. Good to be speaking with everybody, and thank you for the introduction, Caroline.
Nice to have you here. Thank you for joining me. And last but not least, we have Natalie Black. It's 365. Natalie's actually not going to be on camera. She's here to help with chat. So I'm grateful for you joining us, Natalie. She's going to be off camera and on mute and going to be helping with slides and all sorts of things. But so please do activate your chat and put anything you want to ask within reason in the chat. So it is supposed to be an interactive chat. We'd love to hear your questions as we go. I'll make sure that, well, Natalie, hopefully, I don't normally have someone to help, but Natalie will be here as well to help make sure that anything you want to know is answered as we go, or else we can do that afterwards. We're going to be looking through, so Paul's going to be chatting us through some of the functionality of sa.global. We're going to be looking with Paul M about, and actually Nigel, all of us in fact, about how Microsoft can create financial discipline across the Microsoft suite. We'll be looking at some of the work that sa.global and Field Fisher are doing to surface financial data in teams. We'll be looking at how Evergreen's helping Field Fisher to set up international offices. And then we're also going to be inevitably looking at some AI in terms of how Field Fisher is applying AI to its billing practices. I think it would be great before we jump to the slides if everybody could talk about, I always think, you know, it's quite key to set up what your objectives are for the webinar. So Nigel, tell me, for you, what are you hoping to achieve from the webinar?
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess probably to explain, Field Fisher have been quite early adopters of the Dynamics stack, and for me, certainly, is to talk a little bit about that. As you mentioned, I joined Field Fisher in 2022, first time I've worked with Dynamics, and I think it's probably worth sharing some of that insight, the experience, the learning that I've had working with both Microsoft and with sa.global.
Perfect, yeah. Paul M?
I think from my perspective, it's really to lead the conversation just from my perspective in the direction of how people get best value out of the platform. So, you know, we're only successful if our clients, such as Freshfields, get value out of Dynamics, out of the surrounding platform, out of the broader Microsoft cloud. And that's got to be really about helping them achieve their business objectives, ambitions. And I guess there's always global shocks and challenges, but, you know, there isn't an industry out there which over the last certainly 5 to 8 years hasn't been impacted by changes in the global economy, different levels of political risk, and all those types of things. So it's really how can we help people from all forms of firm also be more business agile in reacting to some of those things that that have been sent to sort of challenge all of us.
And actually, I should have said perhaps in the introduction, one of the great things, you don't specialize just in legal. So one of the things we'll be asking is perhaps some of the benefit of your visibility over other sectors as well, which is always brilliant to incorporate some of that. So that's great. Thank you. And Paul F.
I think just to highlight the importance of the platform and the most important part of that is the data, which I'm sure we'll come on to various parts of data importance and AI later, but really that have that controlled, structured, standardized, secure data is very key to everything else you want to do through the businesses. So whatever business processes or however you want to grow or develop your business, without that control on the data in one place. And that's what the platform gives you. I think if we can get that communicated properly in the next hour or so, then that'll be fantastic.
Yeah, well, do you want to jump in then? So you've got some slides, but so it's not a demo, but you're going to be talking us through some of the functionality, which is actually better. So it's great. And if you could just jump on that, and I'll just go on mute for a sec, actually, although I might jump in with your question if that's okay with you. And please feel free in the chat, as I said, to ask questions as we go.
Yeah, fine. So we'll talk through our PMS offering, which is called Evergreen. So we are in the business of managing legal for law firms, not in the business of legal practice as such, practice of law. We look after the management of the practice of law. So we have a product which sits on the cloud, and the true cloud means that you have complete access to everything that's important to you, your data, you can grow, you can control your costs. You can control all of your integrations. So basically, we are visitors to your environment, and what we do is, every 12 or 13 weeks, we deploy the latest version of Evergreen, which will have between 6 and 12 new features, fully tested by us. So we put that through over 4,000 automated tests before it gets to the client, and then the client free to do their own selected tests to enforce that. But really, you're in complete control of it. So we'll come on to something later as well about the importance of the cloud, is how you can grow your business and how quick and adaptable that our product is.
I think I'm not going to interrupt here, Paul, but I want to come on to talk a bit about the cloud in terms of people's understanding of it. Okay. But I think actually I'll just let you go through the slides, and then I'm going to come to that in a second.
Okay. Well, in terms of the cloud, there's no greater example of myself today. I'm not in the UK. I'm away. I'm on holiday. But I've still got access to the entire business, so I can approve, I can go in chats, I can see timesheets, I can access everything. As long as you've got an internet access, you're still connected to the business. So that's basically the most simple explanation of the cloud that there is. So the cloud, true cloud against non-true cloud, is simple the access and the control that you have. So true cloud with our PMS product Evergreen means that you have control over all of the important things. As we said, we'll come on to data, but more importantly, the scalability and control as well. You can increase. So if you wish to open new offices or acquire new businesses, it's very flexible. It's all under your control. It's through your management. All we do is we deploy our product or add to the existing deployment with your new offices or your new businesses. Whereas if you're not on the true cloud, you're not in full control of all of those important factors, such as data, scalability and cost, the ability to grow quickly. Deployments are quite tricky, whereas, as I said, with us, every 12, 13 weeks, we provide a new deployment of our PMS offering Evergreen, and that has new features which you can contribute towards those new features. So that is the flexibility, really, is more importantly, is how you can grow, develop, add new features. We just simply visit your environment and deploy the product.
I can't resist. I know that do people not, do you think, I don't want to say this in a way that risks sounding patronizing, to be frank with you, but do you think that people still sometimes are not fully appreciating the difference in different types of cloud? What's your sense in the market?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, they probably aren't understanding the true impact of the true cloud until you can explain the fact to them that you're in total control of it. So that's all we can say. I mean, and that there isn't a more complicated and clever answer than that. You are in total control of your business and how you want to grow that business. You're not in total control if you're not on a true cloud solution. So if you want to grow, if you want to open an office tomorrow in France, Germany, Spain, Japan, USA, wherever you want, within a few days, we could spin up a new entity for your business. Or if you acquire a business and want to integrate them into your existing firm, we can do that in a couple of days. We have over 30, I think 35 pre-configured entities for various geos around the world, and they would be set up in a couple of days. They would have the same business processes as your main firm. The data would be standardized, secured, and structured, and also it would be things like standard chart of accounts. So all of the 300-400 odd business processes would be the same, and the way the data is controlled would be the same. Therefore, your reporting is the same, and we can control that because of our cloud infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Okay, next slide, please. Right, so across our platform, we have the ability to control the matters from bid to bill. So, it's a very clear diagram there of all the important parts in a matter life cycle from bid to bill. So we cover everything from the business development, client matter, inception, forecasting, budgets, resource allocations, all the way through to time and expense recordings, WIP management, client billing, so on and so forth. So it's bid to bill across that entire platform. And we control that, and we can control that, as I said, through the platform. Again, going back to data, sorry to be repeating myself, but that data through their entire process is structured, standardized, and secure. So if you create a matter, that matter is shared across the platform. If you create a client, that client is shared across the platform, and everybody sees the same version of that client and matter. So when you come to reporting at the end, again, we control all the business processes through this bid to bill life cycle, and therefore your reporting is standardized. So again, it wouldn't just be the same reporting in one office. If you add further offices or you acquire new businesses, that structure, that life cycle is identical wherever you are, and therefore that data, again, that's the key to your reporting, and that's what's more important. Okay.
Thank you.
Next one, please, now. So that's a basic overview of the platform, the cloud, the life cycle of a matter, bid to bill. So what about the users? So we like to meet you where you are. So we've developed our UI to be present in Teams. So we've developed our web applications to cover what I call a holy trinity of time, expense, and approvals, and we bring that to you in Teams. So one of the first examples is you can engage with your matter team and use all the functionality of Teams itself. So therefore you have a very secure site which is specific to a matter. Only people involved in that matter can access that site. You can chat, you can share documentation. You can also see at the time, which is brought to you from the PMS, the latest financial information, but it's all surfaced in Teams, secure again, controlled, and you can see it. So we meet you where you are and bring the work to you from the PMS. There's no need to go into the PMS system at all. You can operate from Teams. So Nat, if you just switch on. Okay, so a perfect example of that is, as I said, the Holy Trinity: time, expense, and approvals. We can handle that desktop or mobile. Again, all you need is an internet access, and therefore you can access the platform. You can record time, you can post expenses, and you can approve time, expenses, also vendor invoices, all sorts of things that you would have to traditionally go into access into maybe a third party part of your PMS. But one of your integrations, but here it's on one platform. It's completely flexible, brought to you. Again, the data standardized, structured, and secure. Therefore, we can use that for other purposes afterwards when we come on to discuss things like reporting and AI. But it's really brought to you, and that's the principle. So where you work, or where most of us work in Teams every day, we bring it to you. You don't have to log into another system. It's brought to you wherever you are. So wherever we are in the world, for example, I'm operating on Teams today. I've handled expenses today. I've handled approvals. No doubt I'll give something else before I go back out on and continue my holiday. But there's a great example of what the cloud is and what it does and how we bring that work to wherever you are, and all you need is a mobile phone to operate. Okay. Next one, Nat, please. There's just a summary of the offerings that we have across our platform, bits that I've gone to before, data. We'll come on to Copilots and AI, I'm sure, very soon. But to get the message across again, you are in complete control. It is your cloud. You're in complete control of it. We are simply visitors to that area, and we deploy our product, as I said, every 12, 13, 14 weeks, and you get new features every 12 to 13, 14 weeks. Very painless process. We deploy the product. And as I said, pre-tested for over 4,000 tests, goes to you. You can do your own standardized testing if you want to check a few things, and then we help you deploy, go live. Relatively painless experience. But again, the platform, data, control, growth, all down to you. Okay.
Okay. Is that your last one? Oh, yeah, brilliant. Sorry.
That's my last one.
So, do you want to do a couple of questions from the chat, largely, to be completely frank, to encourage more people to post? So if we do it as we go. So I don't know if you can see the chat pool, but
No, I
people
can't.
are asking in terms of the cloud, is it single multi-tenancy? I'm not going to read the whole of these questions. If you could just do me a favour, when you ask a question, just put question and keep it to the question. That would be amazing, unless it's just a chat, and then in which case chat away. Do you want to take that one just before we dive into other areas?
It could be single or multi-tenancy. It's depending on what your setup is. You know, they're all individual, but anything can be managed and handled. But whatever it is, the principle is still the same: access, control, growth, so on and so forth. And
in terms of integrations with case management and time capture applications, is that through open APIs?
Yeah, I'm not very technical, as most people know. So as long as it's got an API is my standard answer, then we can integrate and connect to it.
Yeah, from a Microsoft perspective, I just add to that, and from the Dynamics platform, then it is open for integration through various different patterns. We publish those. Quite typically, any challenging integration is whether an API can be provided by other platforms rather than whether we can digest it or take data in. Similarly, we have hundreds and hundreds of out-the-box connectors to various different types of platform and system, as well as the ability to work with people like sa.global and the clients to help them in a governed and you know, with the right level of restrictedness, etc., sort of build their own connectors. So, you know, integration challenges tend to be getting us information rather than whether we can actually assimilate and integrate with data feeds, APIs, etc.
Great, thank you. I can tell there's going to be tons of questions in the chat. I might let Nat answer these, and then anybody else, please, if you're not speaking, jump in and chat. If you want to read one of these questions out, please do. The idea is for the panelists as well to have some fun and so please keep an eye on the chat. I'm very conscious of time, Paul F, if you keep an eye on the chat particularly, and if you want to address any of these as we go, please do. But Nat's in the chat to answer your questions, and I can see she's doing a great job.
She's intercepting, yeah.
So, but just super quick before I come on to Nigel, to talk about Field Fisher, which everybody will be keen to hear about. Just revisit the practice versus business of law point, because I know this is something that you were really keen to clear up. Why do people think that you're in practice of law? Does that make sense?
Sorry, was that to Nigel?
To you, no, to you, Paul. Sorry, you said people think that you're quite keen to differentiate and say we're not in practice of law, and I just was curious before we.
Sorry, yeah.
I was to be frank with you.
No, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Yeah, our software is not designed for the practice of law, so we don't assist in the practice of law. You know, that's for other people to do. We manage the practice of law. So the importance of the client creation matters, getting to build a bid to build process. That's what we're involved in. We're not in any of the very clever stuff that lawyers do around that to get in that bid to build process or in a matter. We just manage the practice with the PMS.
Yeah. I'm surprised that people get confused, but it's really good to. That's one of the reasons we're here to clear this up. Right. So Nigel, so you've been Field Fisher has been on the platform for around 8 years. I'd really like to explore some of the ways that you're using Evergreen. So perhaps you could give us an overview, and before we sort of do any sort of dives in, just talk us through the way that you're using the platform.
Yeah, sure. So we are in the practice of law. It's probably worth saying. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, I'm on the technical side of it, of the relationship. I work very closely with our CFO, Steve Moss, and both Steve and myself are relatively new into role in the sense of, you know, we are kind of working with the product, but the product has been in Field Fisher for 8 years, so it's a mature platform. And from my perspective, it's a mature platform being Microsoft. You know, what more could I have asked for to inherit? The fact that, you know, things like disaster recovery, etc., is all there. I haven't got to really worry about a lot of these things. You know, the security is all there. You mentioned that as being one of the things when under my remit. You know, they're things that come immediately into my concern and into my wheelhouse. So, you know, from that kind of compliance, ticking the boxes, I was excited to work with Dynamics. And when I joined, kind of started to really get under the bonnet. I've worked closely in other firms. I've been responsible for other types of PMS from an IT infrastructure perspective, albeit all on premise, not in the cloud. So this is my first kind of experience of a PMS in the cloud. And I have to say, it was pretty easy. I mean, from the perspective of it was already up, already mature, the processes were already there. We're working with Microsoft, tick, 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 you know, not a huge kind of burden to inherit, I have to say. Um, how are we practically using it? I mean, the point being, we are client to cash, or, you know, bid to bill, whatever you want to call it. We use it for the entire life cycle. We do use some other additional components. So to Paul's point about the APIs, we have used the APIs, and we do use APIs to integrate. But I think for me, one of the big things that kind of has driven the decision, not just with it being the consolidation on the Microsoft platform, which is fantastic, but the fact that actually having all of that financial data in one place and in the cloud, especially at this current kind of pivot point of time where, you know, everybody's getting excited. We'll talk about it later, I'm sure, AI, but, you know, having that and already having that kind of lockstep advantage has been fantastic. And one of the things that I would say is the fact that, you know, Paul Foster obviously mentioned that every 12 weeks we get the updated release. It comes pre-canned, pre-tested. We do our own internal testing as well just to verify it before deploying. But the reality is also Microsoft are deploying all the time as well. So we're getting that AI, we're getting that D365 Copilot capabilities literally, immediately. Ideas and things that we've seen, to give you an idea, is sort of summarization of kind of the top level client data matter. The kind of top level master data. So that's like client matter, etc. We're getting summarizations. That's all just come. It's out of the box. We haven't had to do anything. So that for me is one of the advantages of being on a Microsoft platform. The other key thing we've been really focusing around is, for me personally, it's been building the relationship with SAG, is understanding and aligning where we want to go beyond just the sort of the Dynamics world. And coming back to this point, and we will probably re-emphasize it, I'm sure, about the data, but making that data accessible to as many people as possible, and again using the Microsoft tools to do that, has been hugely advantageous. Obviously Power BI is the main tool we use for doing a lot of that, which fits very nicely in with where we're going as an IT team, and providing that for other services. The ability to allow people to very quickly build dashboards and not rely on finance to have to generate the data for them. And I think that's kind of one of the key things about what we've discovered on this journey so far, is just generally the flexibility, the accessibility, and the ease of access to try and get and modify the things that you need as a business.
Okay, great. There are some questions for you. Natalie's doing a great job, but I think these are ones that so people assume that you're on premises. You said that, didn't you, when we were sort of talking about the prep? And there's a question that seems to suggest that. Could you just, it says, as this sounds like you're an on-premise instance of Dynamics in your own Azure environment. Do you want to just clarify that?
No, we're all in the cloud and have been since day one.
It's funny because I said no. I said I don't think people think that, and but clearly they do. And then thank you for the question. And then what impact has having this system in place had on your admin and billing team? It'd be interesting to see if it's positively affected headcount efficiencies in this area outside of just cloud and operations. We won't do all of the questions as we go, but if that's one that you'd be happy to take now, or we can do it later.
I mean, obviously, I can't talk about to any huge extent about the finance team because they don't report to me. But my understanding, obviously, that a lot of that change happened when the original project program came in. Obviously, that all predates myself. Certainly, from an IT operational perspective, compared to other on-premise PMSs, it's very easy to manage. It's very standard, kind of, if you're a Microsoft shop, which is what most law firms are, it's pretty much standard, nothing fundamentally different. From a kind of day-to-day feeding, watering it, from a sort of technical perspective, I do have a small team that reports to myself. They work very closely with myself, and as I said, with our CFO, and we run an agile sprints, and we effectively are developing in alignment with Paul and Paul's teams, so that we kind of, are jointly working on improving the product ultimately for the legal market.
Great, thank you. And maybe last one for now, or let me know if you want to come back to this one again, Nigel, because we've got a lot to get through. But do you host all client data within the platform, or do you use iManage? How do you manage data retention policies? Do you want to address that now or come back to it?
I can address that. So yeah, we use iManage, and so obviously client data is there. It's purely financial billing data. That is primarily what we have in Dynamics right now.
Okay, great. So I know that you've talked about the platform being easy to use, and I know that you said that we're going to come on to billing in a bit more detail in a bit, but you said that it's enabled you to help create discipline around time and billing reporting. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Because I want to come on to Paul M to talk about perhaps some of the benefits of the Microsoft platform in that sense.
No, I think like lots of law firms, we're challenged from a financial perspective. I think giving people visibility to that data, and being able to kind of be flexible around the types of data you can provide at an individual, group, practice, office, whatever it may be. That's one of the key things you need. You don't want too much rigidity in the sense of that reporting capability, and that's something which Evergreen gives us. It gives us the ability to do that. One of the things, I'm sure we'll talk about this in a bit, Paul's already mentioned the Teams capabilities. One of the things that from day one, obviously, the firm had deployed within the standard Dynamics suite, or views. We are now kind of working our way to migrating a lot of our user base into that kind of Teams world, because I think from a general kind of user experience perspective, keeping it simple, people just want to get access to the data to do the job and the role that they need to do. And often, they don't want to have to learn a new system. And that's why we're particularly keen on the Teams integrations and leveraging the whole Microsoft suite as a consequence of that, because we feel it's a nice, easy way for people to be able to interact with financial data.
Yeah, I really look forward to, as you say, we're going to come on to talk specifically about Teams. But let's talk. So Paul M. So obviously you do have the benefit of that overview, not just legal. Nigel's talked about using the Microsoft platform to make it easier for users and to create that sort of ease or help enforce time billing and billing reporting. Tell us what you're seeing in terms of some examples, perhaps, of that being used to greatest effect.
So there's examples across sort of all industries. I think it's probably really important to just really point at what is the reality of financial management and practice management across many industries, sort of legal included, and where the cloud and where the sa.global offering comes in, and that the reality, which I think many people on the call will be au fait with, is the most widely used finance system in the world of any type is Excel. That can be a good and a bad thing, but over time, and to Nigel's point of where systems aren't continually updated, features, functions brought in that help adapt to modern day business challenges, then these systems go off, for want of a better phrase. They become stale. And then you end up with a lot of off-system working, whether that be Excel, whether that be paper, manual processes, shared folders, shared mailboxes, all of which really encompass a greater probability and likelihood of inefficiencies, productivity, human error, etc. So you know, the opportunity is to have a single platform which connects all of that data, which enables organizations to gain a more holistic view of financial data and to make quicker evidence-based financial and practice-based decisions. So, you know, being able to very quickly get a holistic view of revenue by hours, work in progress, debt and collection, and really empowering fee earners to make more informed decisions, manage things more effectively and productively in real time, and ultimately spend more time sort of billing and on sort of on client engagement in cases, etc. So really at the heart of this is being able to give people better, quicker access to evidence-based financial information to make those better evidence-based decisions, but are also that relevant to them, so relevant to their part of the partnership or the practice, their form of law, their clients, etc. So it becomes very easy to be, you know, very personalized to each and every person, so they can all become more productive. If we think back to where a lot of kind of platforms have come from across all industries that are financial based, then they were designed typically a long time ago, and right down to the chart of accounts, which Paul mentioned. The chart of accounts was designed to drive very static reporting, complicated billing that took a long time to run. So, you know, moving to the cloud enables that real-time personalized access, the ability to do ad hoc analysis of that data, rather than just relying on, on those you know, old-fashioned static reports, etc., which take a lot of developing, a lot of maintaining, a lot of updating. So, you know, we see organizations from other forms of professional services firms, one I think I'll probably come on to talk to in a little bit, all across manufacturing, retail, household names, you know, that are all adapted, you know, a similar type to approach. You know, we provide as Microsoft, you know, the connected cloud platform. So the core system in relation to sa.global's practice management platform, you know, and as Nigel says, it's incumbent on us to continually update and develop that. But that then plugs into the wider Microsoft ecosystem of, you know, where do you go to collaborate and communicate, which is namely Outlook and Teams. And again, being able to reduce that human error, those manual processes, etc., as both Paul and Nigel referred to, being able to do things like approvals and billing, etc., in the places where you work, rather than having to go away and log into a separate system to go and consciously do something. So our whole approach is around enabling people to have better access to data at the right time, in the right context to them, their role, the project, the case, etc., that they're working on, so they can make more time to do, you know, higher value tasks, rather than those more laborious, manual and labor intensive tasks.
Okay, great. Thank you, Paul. If the panelists can keep an eye on the chat, the questions, that would be great. Just there's quite a lot. Natalie's doing a great job, but obviously I'm just conscious of time. So Natalie's confirmed that can the solution work with Peppermint CRM and CMS offering? Yes, it can. There's some quite in-depth functionality questions which people want clarified. I'd be grateful if you have a look at those and perhaps jump in as appropriate. I'm just conscious of time, so if you want to have a quick look and perhaps, you know, give us an answer if possible during the session. Anything that we can't answer during the session, then we can definitely answer afterwards. So Paul, sorry, I've asked you to look at the chat and now I'm about to ask you a question. I hope you're good at multitasking.
No.
We'll come back to your question. I'm just conscious that it's quite complex, but I'm not trying to avoid your questions, because obviously that's why we're here. You talk about Teams. I think people will be really keen to learn about the update in terms of what you're doing from a development perspective on Teams and surfacing the information there. From all of the conversations that I have with people around PMS, one of the key issues is usability or lack of, and so this is, you know, a development that I've looked at with great interest. I think you touched on it in the slides, and obviously Nigel's going to come on to talk about it from a Phil Fisher perspective, but it'd be great if we could just do a slightly deeper dive into the work that you've been doing with Teams and some of the functionality there.
Okay, yeah, well, most of us live in Teams most days. So therefore, we thought, where's the best UI, where's the best user experience, is to surface all the things that people require to do their jobs, to bring it to them every day. So where do we work? Teams. So where should we bring the information to? It should be brought to Teams. So all of the basic things that we all do, and when we come on to AI later, we'll talk about our AI strategy. We've got two very distinct areas, the transformative and the routine. But if you look at the routine, that's the things we all have to do in the types of service-centric legal sector that we're in here. Is we all have to record time, expenses, we have to do approvals. So all that routine work that's required in order to, and ask for leave, do some HR requests, all these different things require, we bring them to Teams. So we're trying to make people's lives easier in the routine of what they have to do. If we can make those processes easier in the routine world, then all sorts of things become far easier, taking it to the extent of that billing becomes easier. So that's been our view for about the last 2 years, and we've progressed that. So now, as I said, you've got the capability of mobile capability, of adding your time, of adding your expenses, of approving, requesting leave, checking all sorts of basic information, but it's in the Teams environment. As I said, one of the clear things to get across again is the security of the Microsoft environment. So when we showed earlier in one of the slides the Matter team, that's brought together for people exclusively in that Matter. So for the fee earners only involved in that, any chat there is completely secure. Any interaction, everyone would use their own document management system, but if you have to share something, that's completely secure. So again, we're bringing people's work to where they are, and all of the essential things that everybody has to do in most professional service environments, and particularly in the legal sector, is to record the evidence of what they do, expenses and time, and therefore that makes the process of billing far easier going forward.
Definitely. What does that look like from your perspective, Nigel, in terms of using it on the ground?
Sure. I mean, ultimately, a lawyer uses primarily two Microsoft tools, one being Outlook, one being Teams. Outlook for the day-to-day and email, and Teams for kind of everything else around comms, that is, certainly within our estate, and we are very Microsoft heavy estate, to be fair. And so therefore, for me, it was a bit of a kind of, as I say, we when the initial deployment had gone out, it was very much our users were working within the kind of native Evergreen interface. Their reporting was through something called Hub, which was effectively the kind of the default. And so one of the things that we've concluded is we need to simplify it, and we need to take it to where there's the lowest sort of barrier for entry, and keep it really simple, just that people then are, for example, in a conversation with a client, or they're collaborating on a matter, we can put that into that Teams channel. We can provide them the information that they need there and then, without having to go out into other systems, solutions, learning how to access that information. And so that's been kind of the ethos, and that's why we've been working with sa.global around the Empower product, which ultimately is the Teams product. For me, the kind of end game as well is to bring in some of the other components that we're also experimenting with. I think it's fair to say they're not in production yet, but we have we have a production AI chatbot based on Microsoft Azure called Maxton. There's absolutely no reason. Maxton's already been trained against our Evergreen data. It can already answer and converse with you around our Dynamics estate if you've got the right access. So for me, the next logical step is just to put that inside the same Teams channel, so you can choose how you want to interact. If you want to have a conversation type interaction, you can do that through our bot. If you want to just simply look up and you kind of bring your data down through reporting, you can do that. But actually then bringing in other tools that are already part of the, I think Paul mentioned, the Microsoft ecosystem, be whether it's project management tools or anything else, it's a very simple way of building a process of workflow capability that's very accessible for lawyers, and all effectively framed within the Teams environment. So so that's what we've been working on and moving towards.
Yeah, it's Paul mentioned data to start with. And obviously in terms of applying AI, which we're going to come and talk to, that having it all within one environment, I've absolutely no doubt is a huge advantage.
Well, absolutely, especially when you start talking about AI and training that data, and also other products like Microsoft Copilot or D365 Copilot. It recognizes that straight away. It knows that we haven't got to do anything special to try and get this to work.
I'm going to come to talk to you. I'm going to come on to ask you more about the work you're doing in that space. But can I perhaps Paul F? I know what I was going to ask you before I go on to Gen AI. So in fact, I've got two questions thinking about it before we plunge into AI. I'm getting ahead of myself. We write too much about AI clearly. So challenges. So we've talked about, and we will talk more about the advantages of having your data in all one place, which is pretty obvious when it comes to AI. But are there challenges of living just in that Microsoft world in terms of governance or what have you?
Is that for me? Sorry, Caroline.
It's not Nigel, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think probably the biggest challenge is almost the data's too easy sometimes to get access to, in the sense of, we without we obviously have Microsoft alone, without me paying a fortune to Microsoft in licensing, Power BI is an incredibly powerful tool that allows you to get an awful lot of information if you've got the right access to that information, and allows you to create an awful lot of very interesting dashboards and access to that data. It all comes around to that ultimately. From my perspective, the key there is it's setting up the right governance structures. It's very easy once people realize how quickly they can get access to information, that these things just become wildfire. And therefore you need to, and this is me playing central IT here, but you need to have a governance structure that allows you to manage that in a controlled way. And I think that's kind of, I suppose it's not a con, it's the reality of working within this environment. That's almost it's a double-edged sword. We've got great access to the information, but equally, I don't want to be licensing everybody with Power BI. So it's about who has that, how do we do that? And that's why products like the Empower product are great, because I don't think everybody needs that access. We just need you need the level of access for the role that you're doing. And that's the important point. And with Empower, I think we can embed that into those teams' working environments, that you can get that access without having to have all the other whistles and bells around it. But if you want the whistles and bells, they're there. They're easy to deploy.
Yep. It's quite a nice problem to have in a way, I suppose. Too many people want to use it. Things have changed. I mean, I'm not a techie, I'm a lawyer by background, and I've been writing about tech for 10 years, and it's so funny to see how things have changed so much.
It is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. And too many people want to interact. It's not really one of those problems that used to be. I might answer this question. I'm so conscious I'm not answering questions, just really conscious of time and how much we've got to come. But a question for Paul M. Where would the cutoff between D365 Finance Enterprise used here and Business Central? Maybe a question for Paul M. Is that a question for now, Paul? Or do you want to come back to it?
I think that could be kind of quite an extensive conversation, but for the purpose of this conversation, then evergreens are configuration and business processes, common to legal practices that have been sort of layered on top of the platform that we provide sort of across industry. So Business Central could be extended in a similar way should people wish to do that. Where the differences are between Business Central and F&O, again, not taking that into a rather complicated sort of feature function, column discussion, etc. But specifically for those global practices or multi-region practices, multi-currency practices, then F&O would be, or finance and supply chain would be maybe the more natural route to consider. But as I say, what's really important in this is also the actual, the processes, the capability that's built out in Evergreen and configured by by partners such as sa.global. So, you know, that's where our platform, which has all the data integrity, the governance, the security and everything, the scalability, the robustness and everything that Nigel spoke to, core business processes around things like order to cash, etc., that are common across kind of all businesses, the extensibility into wider Microsoft platforms, again, as Nigel and Paul have both spoken to. It's then, you know, our business partners such as sa.global that then apply the, let's call it, industry specific processes or business logic on top of that. So, you know, to do it a different way would need somebody to fulfill that role.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, I think so. Thank you. I think we'll come back. So I'll make sure that we come back to any questions that I have missed after the event, if Nat hasn't already answered them. So because I want to come on to talk about overseas offices. So I know that Nigel, you found it quite easy when you set up in Milan, and I just wanted to talk through both from your perspective. Some of the perhaps practicalities of that in terms of what it was like, what that experience was like for you setting up internationally, and then I might bring the others in, perhaps from Paul from a wider Microsoft perspective, both Pauls actually. So, but Nigel, if you just explain what the process was like.
Sure. So you may or may not be aware that Phil Fisher has done some recent M&A work. We've opened some new offices within the last year or so, or 2 years. We've done Vienna. We've also opened in Milan as well. Both of them have been a relatively simple experience, certainly from a kind of technical deployment perspective. You know, we've already talked about Evergreen being in the cloud. We already talked about the fact that there are already localization packs available as part of the core Dynamics Microsoft platform. And Paul, obviously, Foster talked about that right at the very beginning. So M&A really is not the pain of kind of setup configuration challenges that it once was and is with other vendors, I suspect. For me, very, very easy for us to deploy it, get it up. It literally was a training exercise more than anything. Understanding the local accounting requirements, again, is very, very important. And that was one of the key things that I guess is the challenge. And that's what takes the time versus the technical challenges of how do you actually get the service out there. The actual setup of the service and configuration, once you've got that, is great. The other thing, obviously, with it being a Microsoft platform and with the relationships that sa.global have got across Europe and the world, obviously, there are plenty of Microsoft partners out there with experience of the local reporting that we can work with and have worked with alongside of sa.global to help bring in that localization and the reporting and tax packs that are required to be compliant to practice law. So, you know, from that perspective, it hasn't really been a huge challenge. Once you get those individual offices up and working, again, back the fact that it's mobile, you know, it's on the cloud, that whole mobility piece is kind of an eye opener for many of those offices where they may have been using other solutions. And I mean, just to the point, I was away last week. Paul mentioned that he's obviously, you know, away this week. I was doing all of my kind of admin, POs and everything else on my mobile from the airport on the airport Wi-Fi under, you know, secure VPN. So, yeah, I mean, what can you say? It wasn't challenging.
Paul Foster, oh, sorry, Paul Foster, you were about to go anyway. Brilliant.
No, sorry. No, I was just agreeing with what Nigel said then about the simplicity of deploying. Yeah.
I want to jump in on this point about data sovereignty requirements. I know you've already said you're not here to be our technician, but presumably it can support data sovereignty requirements, e.g. Germany, Switzerland, etc., without sacrificing functionality.
Yes, is a short answer to it. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the complexity of what you're looking for, but yeah, again, back to the cloud, you control your data, you control where it resides and what you want done with it. Basically, you have various options, so it's individual to the firm itself of what they need to do.
Okay. Does anyone want to take this one, or Nat can take it in the chat? Can data residency be split over different geographies? Perhaps D365 can do that anyway. should we leave that for Nat, or does anyone want to jump in?
I think that's kind of an information security and architecture kind of conversation. So yes, things can be split. You can have different tenants in different countries that are either joined up or independent, etc. So that's more around people's individual requirements and ways of working, business practices, etc. Rather than one that's extremely limited from a Microsoft and an architecture perspective.
There's another question I'd be grateful if Nat can answer, but because we were going to come on to AI and we're really running out of time, and I don't want to not have time for it. So you've been doing a lot of work, Nigel, in terms of so particularly around optimizing your billing processes using AI. You've been doing a lot of work with M365, D365, which has been complemented by the work that sa.global is doing with D365 Copilot. If you could just talk us through some of that work. You can tell I'm starting to rush at the end. I was like stumbling over my words. If you could just talk us through the work you've been doing, I'll be grateful.
Yeah, sure. So I suspect, like lots of other firms, we've been deploying Copilot left, right, and centre. That obviously, I'm not going to go down and talk about specifically the M365 Copilot, but if we look at, obviously, Microsoft have different Copilots for different environments. So the Evergreen environment, it operates with the D365 Copilot, and as I said earlier, that already has a number of default features and functions which are being deployed. There are also a number of others which are available to you or coming shortly. So, for example, we're in the process, it's not live yet, but we're in the process of AP automation of invoices. So again, using AI to do that, which was now a new capability that has come along and been provided centrally, and something that we've jumped on because it's something we see huge value in being able to create and get up and working straight away. What we've also been doing is, and I'll let Paul probably talk a little bit more about this, but we've been working very closely with SAG, specifically as one of the very few D365 Copilot implementers in the UK around use cases specific to legal. So what we can do, how we can leverage specifically legal information held within our Evergreen estate, and be able to surface that using AI to provide better decision making, better context, and specifically focusing around things like our billing process.
Paul, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, we're developing AI collaboration engines. So collaboration, the first things we've looked at really are billing and AR, because all of that is covered on our platform. If I go back to collaboration on billing, everybody knows it's pretty obvious what prevents bills from going out every month. And if we could train the sa.global co-pilots to go and seek that information, the hourly rates, the roles, comments, outside council guidance, conflicts with things like that. If we can get ahead of that and sort of head it off at the pass and intercept these things and change the rates and change the comments and make sure the roles are all relevant to the letter of engagement, then when you get to billing, our AI should tell you these 100, 200, 300, 400 bills are good to go. You just need to look at these 4 or 5. Let's collaborate. Let's make a decision on what we agree here. And then the collaboration will go back to the main billing team and it's done. So the more you learn with anything with AI around the data, the more the data can be grounded and understand the business and learn what it needs to make the business more effective, then everything will progress. But it's very key, collaboration. Again, all this is done in teams. So our collaboration engines are built in teams. They bring the relevant people together. So again, the security roles there, you wouldn't get people involved in a bill if they don't have a relevant security role from either finance or the respective fee earner. It's all very well controlled. Collaboration is good. It's all done in a place that they're happy with, and it's pushed back to the main PMS for processing.
Is that so? Is that work in progress? Is that you're developing that, or that is available now in terms of the analysis of outside council guidelines, etc.?
Yeah, we've done some POCs with Nigel and the team at Phil Fisher. So it's just taking the findings of that forward. And it's really just, we're just going to expand that. And as I said, there's more collaboration engines which we can develop off that basis. But it's really, we'll get in with Phil Fisher. We'll unleash the co-pilots, go in to see what the data tells us and progress from there. The more you find out, the more you learn. So, you could in theory create a firm-wide OCG sort of thing to get a standard. If you haven't got one in place with a client, you could have a standard that you're very happy with at that firm. that you should control the process. Things like that you can head off and control. But again, all brought to you in teams and all managed by, again, the routine, the element that we can influence across the features of our business, our platform, Evergreen is there within this collaboration of AI.
Yeah. Are you able to say, so before we wrap up, I'd like to just sort of wrap up a little bit with Paul M. But are you, so there's obviously questions around the number of law firm deployments, etc. I know there's been changes of direction. Are you happy to take that question now?
And what
No, sorry,
particulars?
Paul F. In terms
sorry.
of how many law firms, etc., etc. I mean, it's early days for sa.global Evergreen, right?
Yeah, it's early days in the legal vertical. We have several across the world, not just in the UK, but we have several across the world. So it's tried and tested in the UK, in other geos around the world. So it's again referring back to the point about BC and FSCM Dynamics. This is a Dynamics platform, and therefore, if you are a multi-currency, multi-global organization, this is the platform that you should be on to grow and develop your business. So the product, the legal vertical product that we have, is across several companies, but sa.global as a business itself has over 1,000 users on this platform, 1 million users, sorry, across the globe on this platform, on the Dynamics platform. So it's tried and tested. It's a very strong product. We enhance it for the legal vertical by adding the features which are relevant for a legal vertical: client accounting, matter management. So it is very, very specific for legal. And if you came on board with sa.global, if you've got a great idea and it's what we term globally product worthy, we can add that. You could possibly see that within, with a good win, within about 13 weeks, but possibly within, 2 releases in a year, you could get your very specific feature added to the product.
Thank you. And just we're really running out of time, but Paul M, are there any, we talked about AI and the financial process, is there anything that perhaps you'd like to flag in terms of the Microsoft platform that we're not seeing yet in legal in terms of applying Gen AI?
Yeah, so I think we're at just such an exciting point where we're entering what we refer to as the agentic era. So the ability to have some of the things that we've been discussing, to have autonomous agents doing some of those things. So some of that collaboration to be done by AI agents between themselves. So when it comes to matching POs, validating invoices, confirming payment terms, to be able to have an AI agent that is actually working through those things, and potentially therefore talking to another agent, another AI agent, to actually present everything back as a final summary. So those things of phoning round, emailing, IMing people on Teams, where that begins to go next is enabling AI agents to do a lot of that work for you. So it enables you to have an extended workforce. So therefore, finance people, practice managers, fee earners can focus even more on those high value and revenue generating opportunities, rather than having to think about how back office tasks. So it's the next level of sort of automation in those. And then the use cases around that, around any type of eligibility vetting, validation, etc., are kind of as far as you want to take it. So just it's very public, just giving a sort of slightly obtuse for the purpose of this this conversation, but many people, maybe dog or cat or other pet owners, but some really public release things that we've done recently around pets at home who are using this autonomous agent and agentic capability to actually combat fraud, which is actually really prevalent, and leakage through fraud in their business, by being able to do that automation of validation, vetting, and investigation, etc. So there's a really exciting era that we're just entering now as well, which again will have huge business benefit for the legal sector.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to ask you more, but we've run out of time. Just goes to say thank you so much to all of you for chatting, and thanks to Nat for doing the slides and the questions. You've done an amazing job. Really appreciate you being so engaged. People listening in, apologies if I didn't ask or we didn't answer your question. We will though after the webinar. And thank you so much. I found that really enjoyable, and look forward to chatting again.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.